Authors Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Reverend Errol E. Leslie. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Stolen Grace, a memoir, how God rescued me from the jaws and claws of the United Methodist Church. If you guys want to get everything that Reverend has to offer, do yourself a favor and head to his personal site. Now, keep in mind that at the recording of this interview, his website is not currently live. It's still in creation. Now, at this time, the hypothetical, or at least the suggested domain name that he's going with is revelarts.com. That's revelarts.com. Now there you'll be able to find more information on Reverend Leslie himself, more information on this book, Stolen Grace, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's revelarts.com. Guys, and I will say, Reverend Leslie was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, Authors Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, make sure you're doing yourself a favor and contacting Authors Press. You can find out more information on them at authorspress.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Reverend, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thanks, Benji, and I so appreciate you having me on your show today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, the pleasure is all ours, okay, Reverend? We're very much looking forward to the words of wisdom that we're going to be able to take from you and from this interview, and also from the confines of your book. Now, I know we have so much information to cover, so let's not hold off any longer. Let's jump right in. First and foremost, Reverend, Stolen Grace, a memoir, how God rescued me from the jaws and claws of the United Methodist Church. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Okay, well, Benji, first of all, the book basically tells the second side of a story which was published about me in 2016. And in a nutshell, I unfortunately at that time in 2014, in fact, had crossed moral boundaries while still being a pastor. But I thought that I was treated very unfairly, if I might say that, by the hierarchy of the United Methodist Church. You know, they say the error is human, and I succumbed, as I said, to the human condition which exists in the best of us. And as it turned out, because of the what I perceived to be unfair or even inhumane treatment, I perceived the behavior of some of the leaders who tried to tear me down to be very unethical and dishonest. And so this book was written as an effort on my part to let the truth be told. So although I was obviously wrong in what I did, I think the Methodist Church's side of the story portrayed me as Satan personified. And it is of great importance to me that I reveal not only the injustice which I felt was meted out to me, but also to say this is how God has rescued me. I feel that my sins are forgiven. I am benefiting now from His grace.
What a way to start. Talk about a cliffhanger. You know, next thing that I want to go into, Reverend, I'm really intrigued by your title. Now, as we discussed on the pre-screening call, the subtitle is very straightforward. It's right there on the nose, right? How God rescued me from the jaws and claws of the United Methodist Church. There's no deciphering that. We know exactly what you're talking about. Now, I really want to focus on that main title, Stolen Grace. There's just something about it that, it's again, the imagery that comes up, the way it rolls off the tongue, there is something so just engaging about it. And it really sucks you in, and it makes you very interested in learning about the narrative. Talk to our listening audience, Reverend. Why did you choose that title to be the representation for your book?
Okay, thanks for that question, Benji. I chose the title Stolen Grace because that was really how I felt throughout the trial process, and that is still how I feel today. There was, in fact, as the process unfolded, a trial at the church level, which would correspond to a regular secular court trial at the state level or the city level, so to speak. And during that process, I felt that the grace that God lavished on me freely was being stolen, or has in fact been stolen from me. The Bible teaches that God lavishes His grace upon us all through Jesus Christ. And the hierarchy of the Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church really tried to steal it from me. So the title is a reminder that grace is free, it is unlimited, and if one person is deemed to be receiving too much, there is still enough available for the rest of the world. As such, we should not attempt to be little gods and ration it, so to speak, according to our frail human judgment. So the question comes up, who are we to judge? And we know that story very well, that Jesus told, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. Mm-hmm. So that's how my title came about, The Grace is Stolen from Me.
Reverend, what persuaded you to sit down and actually begin writing this book?
Well, let me say in answer to that, Benji, that my ordeal with the church, as I just explained, was, to say the least, extremely mind-boggling. I was shaken by the experience, and I still am. I know I keep saying I did wrong, but the response or the reaction of the people of God really shocked me. And it is still hard for me to process that I was a victim of that kind of behavior from the church. In fact, I unsuccessfully explored the appeals process at two different levels of the church and could not believe what I personally deemed to be the hypocrisy of the church leaders. You know, I stated in the opening lines of the preface of the book that as I keep reflecting on the whole horrific scenario, God told me that I must share my side of the story to the world. And honestly, Benji, I really could not be at peace with myself until I got my story out there. And I think the right book in the right hands at the right time is one way that God has provided to help me and will help, hopefully, someone else to avert the mistake that I made. So now I am at peace because I know that God has forgiven me. I'm at peace because I have told my side of the story out there. I'm at peace because I've shared my story. And I truly hope that there's someone or some person who will benefit from the mistakes which I made.
I'm absolutely certain of it, Reverend. Absolutely. You know, what message or messages would you like the hierarchy of churches to receive and act upon from the writing of your book?
Well, one of the messages I would hope that persons receive, regardless of what level of the church they serve, is the importance of restorative justice, which Jesus himself talked about, taught about, preached about so much while he was on earth in flesh. And we know, as people in the church, that the restoration of a fallen brother or sister is what God demands from everyone, and especially from those in authority. The fact in Galatians chapter 6, I think, it gives those of us who are working with fallen leaders insight into what those individuals need. This is in the scriptures. It actually states, if I can quote a little part of it, dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. And Benji, the Bible also speaks against lying and deceitfulness. And I'm sorry to share that I experienced that from persons in the church hierarchy that witnessed against me on the stand. And Jesus warned the Pharisees against their desire to take a speck out of a brother's eye when there is a plank in their own eyes. So restorative justice is important, and certainly we also want to ensure that we do not pick one side of one thing out of the Bible and act upon it, while we ignore other parts of the Bible that gives us a message from Jesus himself.
Again, here in the line with Reverend Errol E. Leslie. We're discussing his fantastic book, Stolen Grace, a memoir, how God rescued me from the jaws and claws of the United Methodist Church, available for purchase through his personal site, reveelarts.com. Reverend, next question, I'm curious, who would you say is your target audience? Or if you have any, and why do you think that they would appreciate your title?
Okay, well, for those persons who will hopefully read the book, I mentioned in the preface 3 sets of persons who I targeted, who should benefit hopefully from the book. Firstly, and importantly, I issued a blanket apology to my family, my friends, and other acquaintances who would have heard or read the Florida Conference's version of the story, and who without a doubt would have been disappointed in me because in their eyes I had let them down. But I also used the opportunity to issue a word of caution to all pastors, whether active or retired, who may be going through the same circumstances in their lives, which could tempt them to walk down the same road that I walked. And I just want to remind them that it is a long, a hard, a lonely road, but there are options. And of course, if I could live my life over again, I would act on my own advice here. Mm-hmm. But thirdly, Benji, I also use the book to remind leaders at the administrative level of all churches that the Bible speaks continuously about grace and forgiveness. The Bible records that God used many persons who were messed up to carry out his work. Therefore, it stands to reason that God is still willing to use messed up persons even today. And as I said earlier, as human beings, we are in no condition to be the ultimate judge. We need to know that God tempers justice with mercy, and so must we.
Fantastic. And listen, Reverend, as we start to close out of this fantastic interview, would you consider the publication of this book amongst your finest accomplishments in life?
Yes, I absolutely do, for several reasons. One of them is that, again, I stated this in the book, I never ever saw myself as an author when I was younger, or even when I was in seminary for that matter. For what it's worth, I am a self-taught musician, and I have done, through my musical gifts, if I say that, I've done 2 or 3 CDs, compact discs, and they did not quite do as well on the market as I would have wanted. I have written Christmas musicals and other musicals, and I have not been able to get them out there. And I will tell you, I did not consider myself in seminary to be the brightest student. So I didn't think of writing on any theological subject or anything like that. But there was this small voice that just kept telling me, you've got to document and publish your story. And I am positive that God wanted me to write this book. So I seized the opportunity, and because this has now been published, and I feel so good when I hold it in my hand or when somebody will make a reference to it to my faith that this has happened. So God, I think, has given me the ability to use a gift which I did not think or I did not know that I had to send the message which I am doing now to the world.
Guys, you know what I love so much about this? Is we've discussed so much information. We're at the end of the interview now. We've covered so much, yet we've barely scratched the surface. There is still so much information left to be discovered, and that's why there's no getting around it. Stolen Grace, a memoir, How God Rescued Me from the Jaws and Claws of the United Methodist Church is the title you have to pick up. And Reverend Errol E. Leslie is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. Let's grow, let's develop, and let's educate ourselves. And it starts with this fantastic narrative. Reverend, this has been truly a pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Again, Benji, I am very happy that I had an opportunity to come on your show and to share information about my book. I want to say thank you for having me, and I just look forward to another opportunity to come back and share with you and your audience another time. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for the opportunity.